One day, God's children came before him, among whom was also Satan, who had been roaming the earth. There, Satan challenged God, claiming that there was a man on earth named Job who was faithful only because God gave him everything he wanted. Job was the richest man in the land of Uz, blessed with a large family and many possessions. Therefore, God allowed Satan to do whatever he wanted with Job, except harm his life. So Satan, very happy, returned to earth to make Job suffer. Will Job remain steadfast before God? Once on earth, Satan wasted no time and began to execute his plan. A messenger arrived to inform Job that his animals had been stolen, and his workers had been killed. Almost immediately, another messenger arrived with news that fire from God had fallen from the sky and burned all his flock. And while the second messenger was still speaking, a third arrived, saying that 3 bands of raiders had stolen his camels and killed his servants. Amazingly, the third messenger had not finished speaking when another arrived with the worst news, telling Job that while they were celebrating at his eldest son's house, a strong desert wind struck the house from all sides. The house collapsed and all his children died. So Job had lost everything. At that moment, Job stood up, shaved his head, and with tears in his eyes, prostrated himself on the ground to worship God. He claimed that just as he came into the world, so he would leave it, and thanked God and accepted his will regardless of the circumstances. Over time, Satan met with God again, upset because Job still honored him. So this time, Satan asked God for the power to take away Job's health, and God accepted, but with the condition of not taking his life. And so Satan caused more suffering, striking Job with terrible and painful sores all over his skin, from head to toe. Days later, 3 of Job's friends arrived. They saw him from afar, did not recognize him, and cried out loudly, each of them tearing their robes and throwing dust into the air. They sat with Job for 7 days, not speaking a word to him. After that, they spoke very poorly of Job, attributing his suffering to punishment for his sins, which greatly upset Job because none of it was true. After this, Job could not bear his suffering and opened his mouth, cursing the day of his birth and asking God to take him to heaven. As the days passed, Job was still alive but completely shattered, almost without strength. His body was covered with worms, his skin torn and oozing. Despite this, Job did not curse God. One day, when Job least expected it, God gave him the answer he needed. But before that, God asked Job to forgive his friends. He obeyed, and God made Job prosper again, giving him back twice as much as he had before. In his later years, Job received more blessings from God than in his earlier years. He had 14 sons and 3 daughters. Job lived to be 140 years old, and he saw his children and grandchildren up to the 4th generation.